it was narcissistic abuse, but the kind where you don't even know it's happening. So you start to think that you come to realize afterwards that all of this self-hatred, these things that you were told about yourself that were horrible, were lies and made up. And there was like literally gaslighting.
Welcome to the Fuck Suffering Podcast. I'm your host, Ray Hance. And today with our guest, we have a pretty far-reaching and wide-ranging conversation. We cover integrating trauma, narcissist parents, the vulnerability and skill of asking for tender witness rather than making someone else responsible for your responses, the cultural conditioning of scarcity and the demonization of money, noticing the treasure at your feet, the renewal and decay, the erotic pulse of ruin, and whether or not trauma can be healed or only integrated. I'm glad you're with us. What is our guest's question for the I Ching today? How can I best release this trauma? We're going to have you throw the coins 6 times. You're going to have 3 coins, hold them in your hand. You're going to throw them 6 times, and you're going to tell me how many heads and how many tails.
Okay.
I'll get your hexagram, and then we'll read a little bit from my book about it. And then, but I'll mostly be giving you a reading based on how your hexagrams are interacting based on your question.
This is so fun. I can't wait to do this.
It is so fun. It's so fun. And I've been meaning to do it for a while now, but I've been trying to finish the book and then finish the web, do this website, just so many other things. But I'm this week when people are kind of calm and not doing other things, I figured this is a great week to hop in there. And it's a great week for people to get a reading too before New Year's. So,
all right. I'm excited. I'm also excited about the question. So,
and you can be anonymous or not. It's up to you. You can decide after we're all done. Yeah.
Okay.
And anything that you say that you don't feel good about or would like me to take out later, I can do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. So what is your first question?
So it is, how can I best release this trauma?
Okay. So now hold on to the coins in your hands and drop out of your head and into your feet. Ground all of your energy into your body. And instead of thinking about your question with your head, feel your question with your hands as you hold the coins. Then you're going to shake the coins in your hands as you're still feeling the question with your hands. So you got hexagram 18, composting, moving into hexagram 14, which is treasure. So basically, around the question of how can I best release this trauma, it's going to be from going all the way down into the decay of it, putting it in the compost pile and really going into the deepest, darkest place without being afraid of that, without being afraid of putting your finger on the pulse of ruin, and allowing yourself to go into that deep, dark, feminine place where there is no doing, only being, and it's dark and wet and heavy and you're not sure how to get out of it. The only way to get out of it is to open more and surrender more. And it's a place where there's no doing, no goals, but a continuous opening and release. Now that leads to treasure, but there's a few transforming lines that you have here that I want to read to you too. So this is it's compost. It's the power, the transformative power of decay, of allowing things to rot away instead of trying to burn them or scrape them. That it's letting the worms in the bowl reveal the bones. which can be painful if it's resisted. And if it's not resisted, it can actually have a lot of ease in it. So this is what your hexagram turns out to look like. It's a yang line at the top, followed by 2 yin lines, 2 more yang lines, and then a yin line at the bottom. And in terms of the elements, it's mountain over wind. Devour and be devoured. Instead of reviling what's being revised because it's dark and doesn't smell so good, bring it to your mouth, offer it your breast. Hungry ghosts trigger metabolism, and metabolism animates the body of the path. This hexagram brings you to the edge of your identity, the old stories you carry about who you are, what you can be, what you can have. Gift is the German word for poison. Can you metabolize poison into medicine? Will you open the gift? If not, titrate the dose. This will not always be possible. Can you love the ancestral monsters carried in your DNA? They are like the microbes in the compost pile. They are the engine of decay. They'll bring alchemical gifts if you let them. Who am I kidding? They'll still bring them if you don't. This is a solve hexagram in alchemical terms, a time of dissolution, release in the dark. Dead and discarded things eventually replenish through decay. Forms break down before they reform. The compost pile holds no prejudices. Everything is welcome. Everything will be devoured in time. Let 10,000 tiny things feast on what's dead and rotten in you. Let it satisfy them and bring them joy. Witness how they celebrate the feast. This is how an ecosystem works. Your decay is their joy. They are so grateful they will pick your bones clean for you until not a trace of ruin remains. Until the old dead smell of you is carried away on scavenger farts. This is not a love and light time. This is a death and transformation time. Don't try to make it what it's not. You'll only prolong it. There's no avoiding it. So you have 2 transforming lines here. But first I want to ask you how that landed.
No, that's totally spot on. Totally spot on. Like it's like I was getting chills when you just read that. So good. That I know that is right.
Okay, so we have a couple transforming lines because your second hexagram here is treasure.
Well, that'd be cool.
Yeah, so like the treasure chest is already inside of you, but there's this stuff in the compost heap is so heavy that it's keeping the lid of the treasure chest closed at the moment. So the 2 transforming lines you have are at 1 and 4. So the first one is kiss the monstrous father. How is your relationship to authority? How controlling are you? What changes would you like to make in your approach to traditional structures? How capable are you with your masculine energy? Do you feel the need to always be doing something and going so that you never have to rest in your own skin? Or are you procrastinating? Are you squandering your bright, clear, young energy? Now is the time to heal the masculine energy within you. No one is to blame. Do you have something to repair with your father? Is there a wound there? Is there something that needs to be said? Perhaps some amends to make. Do it now, even if it's at his grave. And 4, it's again about masculine energy and the father. You can and should forgive your father, but don't allow your forgiveness to degenerate into stagnation. Forgiveness and boundaries are a good match. You know better. You can do better. Forgive the person, but don't emulate or adulate the behavior. Course correct your ancestral lineage. It's work that only you can do.
No, I feel like I'm going to cry.
So your question is about releasing trauma. So I'm curious if it's trauma that's revealing some patterns in your romantic relationship.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's no trauma in my romantic relationship, but it's
old trauma patterns that are coming up. Yeah. So how are they related to authority and control?
They're definitely started out with my father for sure. And then manifested into somebody similar to my father, but worse. Really horribly horrible, horrible man. But the draw to that man was because of what I felt with my father. So this is like totally like magically right on with what my trauma is.
So you did that repetitive relationship already?
Yes.
Where you reiterated the pattern?
Yep.
So how is it coming up for you now?
Because I have a tendency to isolate or to run or to get defensive or to think that the person's doing things that they're not, because I'm so like the other side of that was so extreme that I have damage.
What did the other side of it look like?
It was narcissistic abuse, but the kind where you don't even know it's happening. So you start to think that you come to realize afterwards that all of this self-hatred, these things that you were told about yourself that were horrible, were lies and made up. And there was like literally gaslighting, like even to that level, like the movie. Mm-hmm. So it was afterwards me being very paranoid of like all men, and still maintaining that like a little fear there, like jumping, like, you know, the least little thing. I'm like, well, is that because you're trying to like just, you know, sort of paranoia that it would happen again?
It's not just paranoia, though. It's also protection.
Yes. Yeah. It's self-protection for sure.
And I think sometimes when self-compassion is the better part of trauma work. I've had to release a lot of similar things around similar things. Yeah. And that realizing that something was protective for a long time. And that time is just no longer happening. That thing is no longer happening. And it's hard to let the body relax into that.
Yes, it definitely is.
How does it feel in your body when you have that impulse to run?
It comes out in the form of anger. Mm-hmm. Or like, it's almost like a flash. You know, it doesn't feel like I know that it's the impulse to run, but that's not what it feels like. It feels like I'm being betrayed. I'm being this, like anything that, and if you've been in a relationship that's similar, you know that you come to realize after it, all these different things. So you feel this, like, you're doing that because you're trying to make me do this, or like, it's just like, and like yelling or like trying to end, cut, burn the bridge, get away from it. Even though I know that I'm trying to run, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels full of, that I'm right. And that I have to get away from a bad situation with the most loving man in the world, you know, like not a bad person.
So that flight response.
Yeah.
Will still rip up your midline.
Yes.
Like the wave of it.
For sure.
How does that look when you respond to it without reacting in the habitual way? Are you ever able to let that wave just run through you?
Yes, I am. I do.
How does that feel?
It feels horrible. It does not feel good.
How do you respond to that?
Sometimes you can see it in my eyes, and I hold it in, you know? So sometimes I'll be like, okay, all right, well, I'm just going to run to the bathroom. Like, I'll just remove myself from the situation to try to just like get over the hump of when it will end. And sometimes I successfully let it go. Other times the same thing will rear its ugly head later. where it's like, yes, I got over it for like an hour, but it's bothering me, and it grows and grows and grows and grows. So what started out as, I felt like you were doing this because of this, becomes a complete novel of information that's backed by other new facts from the, you know what I mean? It just grows. So it does not have a good feeling when I avoid saying it.
Because you have plenty of evidence in your catalog.
Yes. Plenty of evidence.
Maybe not from him, but from somebody else.
Yeah. Right. That could look the same.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right. Are you ever able to experience the sensation of that as a pure physical sensation without the stories?
Yeah, that I do, but it's only for the moment that I avoid saying it. So for the moment that I don't say it, if I sometimes literally actually even bite my lip, literally, and I will remove myself. I feel just that, the feeling of like, I feel very angry or upset, and that's all I feel. And the whole thing is not blown into the story yet.
Can you express that energy and have him witness you without making him responsible for it?
Oh, you mean like say, like how would, like what would be like tell him, like explain it? Like what would be an example?
Like letting it run through you, not holding it in, and letting him know, I would like you to witness what's coming through me right now. I know you're not really responsible for it, but this is real for me. And I would like to be witnessed in this space. I don't want to have to hold it in. So I would just like to be witnessed.
So then at that point, would I say, I feel like what you did was like, do I say it out loud, or just let him see how, like when I'm holding, even though I'm not saying the words, just how it looks?
Well, what's really true in that moment?
The real truth is that I'm projecting onto somebody that, I mean, sometimes he might mean something that's, nobody's perfect.
Sure.
But the truth is I'm projecting a psychopathic narcissist, like to the most visceral degree, onto a person that that doesn't think that way. Mm-hmm. So even if there's some little thing, like I might be perceiving something little, mm-hmm. What I feel that is happening is from a different person. So I'm filled with like defensive rage, that, all these different emotions that came post that relationship. So that's the only thing that's real, is that there could be a little something, but the man is a good, loving man.
What else is true though? What is definitely happening in that situation?
What's definitely happening in that situation is that I'm getting very, very, very upset by something.
And you're having some physical sensations?
Yes, for sure. Yes.
And that is the thing that's indisputably true in that situation, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is indisputably true.
So whatever the stories or whatever object you're attaching to it, the sensations are happening.
Sorry. Yeah. The physical sensations are happening.
So what I'm suggesting is, can you ask to be witnessed? Can you ask for you experiencing those sensations to be witnessed without making it his responsibility that you're having those sensations, and without asking him to take any blame or to receive any resentment that's actually not his? And for you both to actually lovingly witness the physical sensation.
Yeah, I think that he would totally do that. And it is physical, completely physical. My appearance even changes. He can identify it.
It's like being a shapeshifter.
Yes, it is.
Like sometimes if you have that wave of rage will actually shift your whole, your whole visage. Like it all changes.
I will ask him that, and I know he's going to listen to this podcast. He already asked me if he could. So I'll tell him to listen to it, and we will try these things together.
Yeah, because sometimes asking to be witnessed by someone and making it clear that you understand that they're not responsible, that this is, but you are asking them to just hold you in this space, to witness you in this space, so that you can actually be present, not have to resist it, not have to bite your lip and go into the other room, but that you can actually be with the grief under the rage, with whatever you find under the rage, because the rage will burn itself out in a period of time, and it'll like slash and burn the field. And you don't even know what's in the field until the rage is able to come through. But if you keep suppressing it or moving on or pretending you don't feel it or making it his fault, so then you escalate this conflict that's really fictional.
Right.
And it becomes just about reiterating an old story and has nothing to do with truth or love or belonging or any of the yummy stuff. And I say this because your second hexagram here is treasure. And so if you can squish your toes in the compost pile, like there are gold nuggets in it.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to like lay down in it and feel that warmth and feel yourself being engulfed by the dark.
I don't know how to do that. How do I do that?
By not doing anything. And by not blaming anyone. And by letting the rage run through you. By letting it all run through you and not making anyone responsible for it. Just letting it be. Letting it be waves of sensation instead of stories.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, for the present with him, you're right. Don't allow myself to build more. I build like a case. Like
I want you to actually allow yourself to feel whatever you need to feel. It's not about working on something or not allowing something. It's about allowing it completely, but just not making anyone else responsible for it. Because it's going to be much easier for him to come to you if you're more like a like a geyser of rage rather than a flamethrower that's directed at him. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
you are right. You are definitely.
If it's just a natural phenomenon that's rising up out of you and then cascading back down around you, then that is quite a sight to behold. That's like a natural wonder. But no one can behold it if it's being directed at them.
You are
so. So if you can give him the space to come toward you in those moments and witness you, then the treasure is everywhere. Then you're just in gold doubloons around, you know?
Okay, so question about this. All right, so that is awesome advice, and we are going to try it. And he's going to listen to this podcast, and we are going to do this. Okay, so done. All right, and I will report my results.
Great. Oh, awesome.
But now, what about you're saying? Okay, don't blame anyone. Definitely don't blame him because we know he's not angelic, but he's the best. Like in my opinion, the best man in the entire world. I think I have him. You know,
I think I do.
you want to have a contest and meet you. But what about the original? Okay, so my dad. And actually, Heather, my dad.
I do.
You remember kind of like how he was. He's changed a lot, but there's that, and he's actually a pretty loving and calm man now. Like a lot of what we remember growing up is not there. Mm-hmm. And then, so leaving him aside, the person that pretty much destroyed my joy. Mm-hmm. Like that I'm still recovering from, the person that probably led to me becoming kind of a loner, isolated. Do I not blame that person even in my mind?
When you're ready. When you're ready. That is also nothing to be worked on or forced.
Okay.
And in my experience, and in the experience of people that I've worked with, allowing yourself to be witnessed in your relationship now, allowing all of that to run through you will bring with it a lot of the stuck stuff from that relationship.
Okay.
So it's not like there's no point in trying to force forgiveness. Like that's a fool's errand. Like that, don't bother. It's like asking the leaves to turn red in July. Like that's just dumb. It'll happen when it's time.
Yeah.
Like there's no need to force it. So as you are witnessed and held and loved in all of those energies, because someone is able to come towards you because you're not directing it at them.
Right.
It's coming out of you in a way that you're like, I know this is coming out of me and I don't need you to hold it or be responsible for it. I just need you to see me here.
Oh, I love this. What a great idea. Because then if you're loved through even that thing that you hate
that is what I'm saying. That will be how you get to the forgiveness.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're so right. Oh my gosh, you are so right about this. It's the worst, most horrible side of myself. I didn't used to have it. It came later. And I do feel like, and he already loves me for a lot.
What's the most horrible side?
Just this part of me that's so like, it could be, we could be sitting there, like the trigger level in me, the amount of the trigger is like 1 to 100 in 5 seconds.
Well, that's how vigilant you are. That's how vigilant you are. It's okay.
Yeah.
At some point, that vigilance was required. You did the right thing by learning how to be vigilant.
Yeah.
And having compassion for yourself. That vigilance was a skill at the time. And that time is not now.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that you're right. I think that if he can, I do think that is the worst part of my whole self is that it's a problem. I've been doing things to try to fix it.
Like, whoa. Oh, the words I hate to hear.
I know.
Wait, what are you trying to fix about yourself? Oh God, no, don't do that. What do you think is broken?
Well, that it's I try to fix it, the relation, trying to not be that way with him. Like I don't, I could make him leave. There's almost like a desire to make people leave or something.
Oh, totally. Because then you get to be sure you're safe.
Yeah, I think so. And I think if you've had something like this, then you probably intimately know pretty much exactly you don't feel like that's what you're doing.
No, you feel like you feel like you're trying to be safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, yeah, but I think if he could love me with this thing that I think is my worst attribute that I have right now, and he observed it. And to your point, it's not like it's going at him. It's just that he can see it and he knows that I'm feeling it. And even if I tell him what I'm thinking and, say like, I know that this isn't you, this is what my mind is doing and how I'm reacting to this.
Yeah. And do you think you could let him hold you in those moments physically?
I definitely do. Yeah, I definitely do.
Do you think that might shift something?
I think it could. I don't know why we have never thought, well, that's because we didn't have our guide. Like I think that he would be completely happy to do that. He really does want to support that. Like he knows the story, so he would like, he doesn't totally like blame me all the time. And I have made some improvements, but I think that
what are the improvements?
Like leaving the room, just being like, yeah, that's cool.
That's not an improvement.
Well, at least it wasn't like me like storming out of the house and being like, forget it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So it's just a matter of a little bit of regulation.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Vigilance will leave you pretty dysregulated.
We are totally going to do this. We're totally going to try this.
Can you invite him to come to you in those moments? Could you articulate that?
we are close enough, and I believe that he loves me enough that I could probably say to him, like, I'm feeling like this, and like sometimes it's not even him; it could be somebody else.
Oh, sure.
I could explain. I think I'm no longer afraid that he will think I'm just totally insane, which would be a fear, that you might have, because that your thoughts are irrational. I think that I could say to him, I'm really struggling because I feel like blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I do.
Can you see what is irrational about those thoughts?
I can. It's giving people way too much credit just for beginners.
And it's living it's being outside, it's moving yourself out of this moment into the past.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is where your body is physically repeating a pattern to keep you safe.
Yeah.
But once you know you're safe and held and can be seen and still loved, that softness that comes over you is like, there's nothing to run from. There's when that vigilance finally relaxes, God damn, it's like you've been walking around with like a 200-pound backpack on for like decades. And you just fucking put it down. And you're like, wow, I never had to carry, there's nothing in here.
Yeah.
There's fucking nothing in here. Ugh. But I mean, yeah, I'm stronger. It was good training.
Right. Yeah, right. It was good training. That is
look
true.
At what I can do now that I understand what's not real.
Right. Look at literally what you are doing now.
Yes, exactly.
It's probably connected to that.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, and that, yeah. Learning how to receive love when that trauma response is running is a really big leap.
Yeah. Well, receiving love in general can be hard, I think.
Trusting it.
Yeah. Trusting it, and also not projecting, like if you have this trauma, and I'm curious what you think about this, but if in your past you've been with somebody that has decimated like levels of your self-esteem
and wrecked. Yeah.
Yeah. Then it becomes difficult to actually be loved and to continue loving back instead of being like, well, you must not really love me, or there must be something wrong with you. I mean, I'm not really at that much, I'm 48 years old. I'm not really at that extreme of a level, but I was when I was younger, and
totally
a little bit, like, well, what's, you're missing it. You're missing the problem with me. Or so I think just
say a little more about that.
Just like like there's a feeling of receiving love. I think that can be super difficult because you feel like you are missing, you're loving like a facade, or like you're like under my spell of whatever you think that I am being, or what I am, because you've got, like, if you've had serious trauma in the past where somebody's made you feel terrible about yourself, like to the core, and has broken you down, it actually can be challenging to believe love for sure, but also to receive it and love back, because you think, well, there must be something wrong with you if you love me. Yeah. And I'm not saying that problem is as pronounced as it was 10 years ago. From 10 years ago, I really felt that way. As soon as somebody loved me, I couldn't love them anymore.
They must be broken.
Yes,
they broken too. Because why else would they put their hand in the jar of shards?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I love that analogy. Exactly.
What kind of dummy would put their hand in a jar of shards? Get out of here, dummy. And I think under there is that even more tender place. There was for me, like, that even more tender place of like, do I know how to love?
Right. What did you find? Did you know how?
I had to keep opening until I really could. And that was the matter of softening and softening and softening and softening and letting myself be seen. And letting myself be seen and letting myself be thought of as lazy when I need to replenish. Let myself be thought of as crazy when I need to be exactly where I was, no matter how inconvenient or how big or how staticky or how jagged or how white, how whether it be searing white hot rage. All of that is completely valid, but no one else is responsible for it. And once I got that I could be in the fullness of my experience, no matter what the experience was, and be lovingly witnessed by simply realizing that no one else is responsible for this.
Mm-hmm.
And that shift into learning how to eat the blame, even for like my 2 abusive relationships where I had to really, I had to understand that I was pursuing reiteration of my ideas about myself that I learned as a kid.
Yeah.
So how much can I even blame? And that's where a lot of my forgiveness came from. I can't really blame that person for slotting into how I already felt about myself.
Right.
They were my perfect match. They were my perfect match. And until I became the person I wanted to be in partnership with, I wasn't even going to be able to receive.
Oh my gosh,
love.
you're so right.
Do you see what I mean?
That is so true. Yes. There's a reason that they were drawn to us.
And us to them.
Right. It was, and I always thought that too. Like, this is my perfect match. Like, my dysfunction is our dysfunctions are like in complete harmony.
Exactly.
Think about it the way you put it. You couldn't find your perfect match until you became what you like, until you became the sort of like the butterfly out of,
or took
metamorphosis.
Scrape the plaque off the puzzle piece to just realize its true shape,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like all that trauma, all that being bent in so many different ways other than my native shape or singing that native tone that I came into the world singing.
Right.
Once that gets off key, I'm going to now be like trying to make a chord with people who are also off key, And so how much, like, why would I carry that blame? I can eat that blame and then it can come back out as nourishment for others. If I keep that blame, in a Tupperware in the back of the fridge, like it's going to continue to rot in my system.
Right.
And that's going to continue to be in my fridge, not nourishing anyone. Like I can just eat it, shit it out. Like it's fine. It can go. I don't need that blame anymore.
Yeah.
It might come with boundaries. I might not have blame, but I might need to have boundaries with a person who behaves in certain ways with me. Do you know what? That behaves in ways that don't respect my skin, where my skin is. But carrying blame is just the worst.
Yeah.
It's just such a fucking bummer.
Yeah. It actually can act as a cancer in a way because it keeps fueling anger if you focus on it.
And it hardens.
Yeah.
When trauma gets lodged in the body and is not able to be expressed, that's how it gets lodged in the body in the first place. It's like an impact that comes in that you can't metabolize at the time. So you kind of stash it away for later.
Mm-hmm.
And then later never comes. And you keep behaving out of this residue of something that's no longer happening. And it just will devour your life force like a hungry ghost. So if you can manage to be witnessed, then we roll into Hexagram 14.
Okay.
Which
here we go.
I absolutely love. I love this one. I'm trying not to have preferences. The way is easy for one who has no preferences, as they say in Zen. However, treasure. The treasure is yours. Distribute it wisely. The treasury of the true Dharma eye opens and reflects in your own. You are specific, but not separate. You are the treasure. The treasury is continuously open to you. You have everything you need. This is a hexagram of unfettered sovereignty and success. You are a treasure. You have treasure. The question then follows, Are you at ease with having treasure? Or are you tossing it away like a ragged hot potato because you don't deserve nice things? Can you use your wealth to nourish goodness in yourself and others? Can you allow yourself to metabolize and spread the wealth you've been given like so much rich compost? And then your first one is composting that, like, so now you're completing this process of composting. So now what are you going to feed in the garden? Distribute your energy and your talents widely. Your glittering virtue is the crown jewel. You are enriched and enriching. There's a sense of good fortune written in the stars here. Juicy karmic fruits are being eaten at last. Honor, virtue, success, wealth. Nature has ordained it. Let it be. Like the Empress in the tarot deck, you can easily metabolize abundance. There's another paragraph here that might be interesting. Do you have outdated, inherited ideas about money that you have to address? Do you believe that money and people who have it are bad? If you have a lot, do you let it isolate you? Now would be a pretty urgent time to address that. Now is the time to clear all those old ideas about money and power and open yourself to receive unfettered. The treasure is not yours to hoard, it's yours to steward. Guide the flow of this wealth into the world and behold the gleaming growth it provides. Take it all in and don't for a moment allow yourself the indulgence of smugness. Keep distributing virtue. Toss those doubloons. Share beauty with benevolence. You are fitted for goodness, or you would not have such treasure laid out before you. Deliver it from evil. Do not be deluded by ideas of ownership. Do no harm. There is nothing to defend. Don't staunch the flow. Stay clear and enjoy the ride.
I can't believe that you know what's very interesting that you just read that I'm very surprised was that the part about the last paragraph that you were like, you might find this part interesting. I expected that part would read, you feel like you want to make more money or be richer, like you admire people with a lot of money. But instead it said the opposite. It said, maybe it's time to undo your ideas about having negative feelings to people that have too much money, which I do.
Oh, I think anybody who grew up where we did,
yes, I think
inherited a bit of that.
Like the trust, like I must say the word trust fund kids like once a week, like negative, in a negative way. Mm-hmm. And it has recently come up where it's becoming a problem because we did grow up. We worked our way out of what we were in. Mm-hmm. Like there's not that many of us that left Upper Kirby, right. So yes, that's been hard for me to do, that changing that up and thinking it's okay to have money. So that's
okay to have money.
Yeah. I'm super, even to this day, I'm frugal. I'm cheap. I try to get deals. When somebody's living too lavishly, I look down on it in a weird way. I think it's wrong, So.
Well, I would suggest to you that there's a very visceral link between the shutdown that happens around being loved and the same shutdown that happens around money. That there's a theme of scarcity and that there isn't enough to go around on both of those things. But actually love and money neither of them are actually limited resources. Like we might only have a certain amount of money at the time, but wealth as a concept is actually limitless.
Right.
It's just how it gets distributed. And the same thing with love. It's actually a limitless resource, but who's doing the distribution? Who's doing the distribution? And how and are we requiring someone to give it to us rather than us generating it from within?
Right.
Is our relationship to both love and money externally sourced or internally sourced?
There's also another thing where, like, examining the relationship with money and, a treasure and, like, just almost having this, like, thinking it's the root of all evil, even though I do pretty well for myself, but I don't act like it.
Isn't that
and
interesting?
not acting like other people that are like, I think there's also something to, okay, well, I am the way I am. I probably, no matter how much money I ever make, will probably always live the same way and will always work and will always be generous with it. And just am like that. Right. And there's a good place for me in life. I would never trade growing up in Upper Darby for the world.
Me either.
Like, I think I loved it for what it made me, which is a hard worker. Mm-hmm. But what's not okay is looking at it as something bad and projecting that onto others. That's not okay.
How do you see the relationship between virtue and righteousness?
Well, I kind of think they're sort of the same, except that virtue is you have the trait, and righteousness is what's correct. Am I getting the word virtue wrong?
There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious as to how you see that.
Yeah, I think virtuous is more like an adjective of a person that's doing something righteous that everybody acknowledges to be righteous.
Where's everybody's authority coming from?
You are right. This is not, it's not like killing's wrong. That this is a different version. This is a different thing. So you're right.
Is okay, let me rephrase this. Do you see a difference between how do you see the difference between work ethic and a slave mentality?
And a slave mentality?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, work ethic to me, it would be a virtue. Work ethic to me is very important. It's the right way to be. I hold that as a very high standard in my self worth and the way I look at others. Like, to me, work ethic is like you're connected with life. Slave means that you're doing it not because you want to. So you're being forced. So it's not a work ethic, it's forcible working.
And how do you keep that clear in running a business? And because nobody always wants to do the things that they need to do to run a business.
That's true.
Yeah, ever. Yeah. It's like 50.
Love all the paperwork and stuff.
Yeah,
I love that.
I like this part.
Right.
So how do you manage to stay open when you're doing other things that make you uncomfortable or that you don't want to do on the work side?
Oh yeah.
So taking the emotional side out of it for a minute, how do you approach opening at work?
Opening.
So work ethic as an entrepreneur, I think, requires, in a way, the same kind of sphinctery flexibility of knowing when to open and when to close and when to have a boundary and when to open, as an intimate relationship does.
It does.
They have different tones, but I think the skill set is in some ways similar. And how it feels in the body is in some ways similar.
Oh my gosh, Heather, you are so right. And you know what? I fail at this miserably at work. I fail.
Oh, that's interesting.
If I feel like somebody's crossing me, I freak out. It becomes the same feeling as too personal, as if they are attacking me. I can't believe I'm admitting this, but it's completely true. So there's been several situations where I have felt to me, it feels personal. So if somebody screws me over or hurts my business or does something against me or steals an idea, which is that is a personal and very painful attack. And my response is, I am in full army gear. I go after that person with my guns blazing. Like, I am lividly angry about it. In the same way where I have created a story, but not quite the same, but I do create like a mountain out of not a molehill. It's a serious thing, but I have created like a court, like should go to the Supreme Court,
right?
You know?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not a violation at all, but I'm just wondering how you operate within a similar pattern at work versus in relationship, at home and domestic relationship, because I do feel like sometimes it's easier to see at work.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It is
because,
very much easier.
Because the stakes are not as high in the same way.
Yeah.
You know, like right. We're not as worried about like letting go of the employee as we are letting go of our spouse or our partner, you know? Like,
yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, definitely.
Sometimes, yeah, a little bit clearer. So that's interesting that you see that at work too.
I just only if somebody be like other than that, like, so say my partner, that never happens. You know, like, so it would be very clear if I felt that way with him, because it would be like, all right, I could separate myself out of that and be like, what am I even thinking? It would be a flash in the pan. But if I feel that somebody has wronged me at work, I do have that sort of that same kind of reaction where it feels it like I almost feel that I am my business, you know? So when somebody wrongs me, it kind of produces the same feeling. But to your point, you know, I can definitely see it. And also it's not really as bad as it would be emotionally in a relationship. It just sort of, there is a pattern there though.
How about if we're separating story from sensation? Is there similarity in how it feels in your body?
A little bit, but it does feel different, I think.
How does it feel different?
It's anger, but I can feel more of the depression when it comes to work. The sadness is more, the hurt is more present than in a relationship situation where the anger is up front. I a lot of times feel really hurt or like disrespected or like more softer emotions. I'm way more in touch with when it's something with work that I feel like somebody's done something that has wronged my company.
Do you feel like that's because it's lower stakes, like, or that it's like more beneficial for you to be softer? I find that really interesting.
I think that it's because I'm not going to run away from my business, you know? So I think,
that you'd be more likely to run away from your relationship than your business.
Yeah. So I think
that's interesting.
Because I'm not trying to get away from it. It's almost like the smoke of all of the anger is not quite as heavy. And I can actually feel like that made me feel really disrespected, or I can't believe that they stole that money from me, or like those things, actually, I can feel them better.
So with your business, you're really committed to working through it.
Oh yeah. Like I'm, you know, it's my business, you know, it's my baby in a way.
Right. Whereas with your relationship, you're like, I could run.
Well, I wish that I like the times that I do run, I'm like at home crying and being like, what have I done? And I don't want that to be the case. So it's harder just to access what's really going on in a relationship than it would be at work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Isn't it? It is interesting when you're intimately tied to your work and it is so personal. I think how much more insight you can have from like in all of your relationships, you know, because it is it's emerging out of who you are and how you show up in the world. Yeah.
I mean, we are our businesses.
Right. So like there's nobody to blame. There's nobody like the buck stops here, you know? Like,
right, exactly. It's wonderful to not be mad at anybody or to like anything that's a problem is my own fault. You know? So
but can you say that in your relationships?
No, I wish that
see how different it feels?
Yes, it does.
And yet it's every bit as true.
You're right.
And yet it's every bit as true, because like you're not running that business by yourself either. There's people, everyone involved in it is part of it, but you're able to take full radical responsibility in business. And not so much in the relationship, because it's just so much more loaded. But it's the same. It's that if you can take that level of responsibility for how you're showing up in the relationship too, it changes everything.
You are right about that. I love this analogy. If anybody is listening to this that is a business owner, this is really going to hit home. Oh, because we are our business is us.
Yeah.
You know, you own your own business.
Right.
And to say it that way, it's almost like treat your relationship as your business in a way.
Well, it's like you be the friend to yourself that you would be to your best friend. In some ways, it's like treat your relationship with the same tenderness and love and attention that you treat your business.
Yeah, like, I mean, as nuts as that sounds, take the same responsibility, act with the same decorum, handle it with the same
dignity,
intent to make it work.
Yeah.
Don't flee from your business. You don't flee from your business. Why would you run away from your relationship? This is good stuff, Heather.
It's ridiculous, but it's true. It's ridiculous.
I know.
It's just that it's more like a handy place marker.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is crazy. How long have you been doing this business that you're doing now?
2 years. 2 years. Yeah.
And do you have people working under you at this point, or is it you?
It's really still me. And it's this, in the last 3 months, I've been like, okay, I really would like to have some people to do some other things. But I've had that in the past, and then I haven't known how things work. Like, I've been afraid to go into my website, because if I touch something wrong, it'll all fall apart. You know what I mean? And I want to be able to, I want to be intimate with the infrastructure of what I'm building, especially while where it's at right now, when I can be hands-on everything. So I'm being conscious of when I'm squandering time doing shit that is just like eating stupid time.
Yeah.
That I'm just bad at. I don't want to be good at it. I'm never going to be good at it. I'm not interested.
I totally know what you mean.
But I also don't bookkeeping is one of those things, but I also want to be hands-on with it now, just so I see where things are going. Mm-hmm. And I see how the foundations are being laid, as things grow, I would love to relinquish some of these responsibilities. But right now it's like, okay, I want to be able to touch everything. I
totally know what you mean. Yes.
And realizing when that's just me being a micromanager of myself.
Yep, I know.
It definitely has a point of diminishing returns at a certain point.
I know. There's certain things you are not good at, and better to let somebody else do them. Even just to set up your, maybe set up a site for you on WordPress.
Because I'm doing the WordPress right now, and I have been for the past couple weeks, and I'm just like, okay, I'm really glad I can see how to do this, and the maintenance of this will be handed over to someone else. I'm all set with this. Oh God. Or even the audio editing for this.
Right.
Mess around with it a little bit and then just be like, okay, eventually we will have somebody help me with it. But I want to know how things work right now.
Totally get it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us on the Fuck Suffering podcast with me, your hostess, Ray Hance. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, come to rayhance.com, REIHANCE, and send us a message. If you're interested in the book that I use to do readings on this podcast, it's called Oracle of Emergence, an Evolutionary I Ching. That's my book, and it's available on Amazon. If you would love to help us grow our audience because you enjoyed the podcast so much, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And in the meantime, God, we really can't fuck suffering until we trust suffering. And in a wild existential kink, we are all in that together. Till next time.